Thank you, and good evening, everyone, to this Waterbury Connecticut Board of Education workshop for Thursday, May 6th. It's a virtual meeting via Zoom. We have an action-packed agenda tonight. It's full, so I'm going to try to keep us going to the best of the script as I can. To start things off, I would like to ask Mr. Rocco Orso to give us a pledge of allegiance. Let me start over again. I'm jubilant that the Red Sox won. We're going to start off tonight with a silent prayer. Dr. Ruffin, do you have anything to add in the silent prayer?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
So it will be a true silent prayer.
Thank you, everyone. Commissioner Rocco Orso, would you lead us in a pledge of allegiance, please?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
of the United States
States of America,
and to the republic
the republic
who
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you, sir. Tonight, the next agenda item is public speaking. Do we have any callers on the phone?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Our first item is a continuation of, this is the third discussion on the student resource officers at the school. I've asked Chief Spagnola to join us for an update because as of the last one, he had an offer out for people to come and knock on his door and raise an issue. And Dr. Ruffin, if you have anything else you want to add in. But Chief Spagnola, I know you're on the phone, so why don't I give you your 30 seconds to start them and give us an update if you have anything to talk to us about.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it, and thank you to the board for me the opportunity to address you all tonight on the continued conversations and discussions about school resource officers. It's no secret on how I feel about school resource officers in our community. I think that we've put work and effort into the resource officers that we have. They have tremendous relationships with the students in the schools, and not only with the students, but with the staff and the administration of the schools. And it really, it's more than a security component. It's true relationships, and we see it on a daily basis. There's been terrible crimes that have occurred in our city, and some information and some of those crimes have been solved because of relationships between our school resource officers and the students that they serve. They are there as mentors. With COVID, it's been slightly easier for me. I'm not going to brag about it too much, but we've made zero. The school resource officers have made no school arrests this year. They've engaged in a lot of mediation. They've engaged in a lot of one-on-one mentoring and group mentoring. We've really focused on gangs, guns, and drugs, violence classes for our older students, we're seeing dividends pay off from these relationships that have really formulated over the past numerous years. Going back to the mayor's days as a chief when the school resource officer program began, and some of these officers that are assigned today were assigned back then. And have tremendous relationships through the schools that just really, I think, benefit our community. So I know I had an opportunity to address the board a while back and had offered to have discussions with anybody in the community that may have an issue. No one has brought an issue to attention. No one's called my office. We have zero complaints about our school resource officers through our complaint process or through the internal affairs division within the department. So that's pretty much what I have to report. Dr. Ruffin?
Thank you, Chief, and it's good to see you and commissioners. The the relationship that we have been honored to participate in with our SROs has been quite unique, in my opinion. And as I've seen the responses that students have had in engaging in conversations with their SRO on their individual schools. And of course, what was most telling of anything was the responses when we inquired of the community, the school community, where the impact truly is with our resource officers. Was a tremendous amount of support that we received from all of the respondents, that they were very much in support of the SROs in our schools, and went on to send me numerous emails and call me and have conversations about the positive relationships that they've had for many years with their resource officers, even before even some officers that are no longer in the school district, that they may have retired, and the celebrations that these schools gave, and in some schools, and one in particular sent me where there was actually the students as well as the staff cried because of the long-term relationship that had been developed with their SRO. And I do want to emphasize that we have a recent memorandum of understanding with the Waterbury Police Department. I think it is not only well written, but it was written with the intent to execute it and to monitor it, because it is our collective desire between the chief and myself that we want to impact our school and our school community in a way that perhaps we've never done before. And so I am particularly excited, not that an MOU makes me excited, it's the results that do, and the intentionality about the relationships that we have gone about to develop and we want to nurture. And of course, we always want to hold ourselves accountable for making significant progress. And I believe that we are certainly on the way to seeing that happen in a way that is going to be reportable, not only to the board, but also to our numerous community members, our stakeholders, our schools in particular, and our children more specifically. And so I am always open to hearing and to listening to what people have to say, but I have received a number of positive responses to our school resource officers in schools, and also had the pleasure of meeting our new lead in the police officers, Sergeant Benet, and having to see her connect with our schools. And unfortunately, having to very early on her assignment, having to communicate about some travesty that had occurred in the community, but that it impacted our schools. I think that's yet another way that our SROs are invaluable, because they not only respond to what happens in schools, they really do come out wholeheartedly and respond when we unfortunately have something happening to our families at home, whether it's the death of a child that is communicated to me or to the school that has to mourn and have to console parents, and unfortunately we have had a lot of experience with that. And thanks to our SROs and their ability to respond in a way that connected them already with the families and with the community, I think that has been a tremendous resource for Waterbury Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. I also noticed that Mayor Neil M. O'Leary is on this call. I was wondering if he had anything he wanted to let the board know.
No, well, thank you, Chuck, Mr. President, Commissioner Chuck. Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Thank you, Chief Spagnolo. I was the one that started the school resource officer program when I was the chief. It was the first thing that Dr. David Sneed, the former superintendent, had asked me for. And we built this program, and it's had such a positive impact on so many young people's lives, and it's improved police and community relations exponentially. It's amazing. The letters that I got fill a full file cabinet from parents and teachers, students, and others when we started the program. we've learned a lot on both sides of it. There's no question about it. I think the key to a successful school resource officer program is continuous training and understanding, and particularly, over the last several years, there's been a stronger emphasis on training for school resource officers and certainly school-based arrests. And one of the things I wanted to point out, and I apologize because I wasn't at one of the meetings where this was under hot topic and discussion, but in fact, that 1.5 year period of time where we saw school-based arrests jump, it wasn't those statistics weren't reflective of the school resource officers making arrests. Those were reflective of, in particular, one principal calling 911 because they didn't have a SRO and in a building and asking the police to make arrests. And that really, when that came to light, we realized very quickly that, we needed to do professional development training for our school administrators and also some training for our police officers to make sure that they, that they understand that, and the principals understand it's the role of the police officer is certainly not to provide discipline, and arrests are only made as an absolute last resort. And I think that that should be noted. I know that some of the people who are concerned about school resource officers pointed to that one uptick in school-based arrests. That problem has been corrected. As the chief pointed out, we are in COVID, so it's kind of an asterisk next to those statistics because we have such low student enrollment. But regardless, there has been no school-based arrests this year. And we really understand why the opponents of the program, how they feel, and we're taking that into consideration. And we're also providing more training to our police officers. And so there should be no concerns about that any longer. Honestly, if a police officer feels or administrator feels that a child does need to be arrested, that officer has to summon their supervisor to the scene before that child shall be arrested. And we hope that never happens, but obviously sometimes it might happen. But we have safeguards in place and checks and balances in place. So, and it's a great opportunity. Not everyone is cut out to be a school resource officer, round peg in a round hole. But I think that our school resource officers are amongst the best I've ever seen anywhere. As I talk to my counterparts in other big cities and towns, and quite frankly, our school resource officers become a part of so many of these school families. It's amazing. Birthday parties, celebrations, graduation parties. I really am amazed at the outreach our school resource officers do. And one thing that most people don't realize when it comes to school resource officers, because it's hard to document this data. School resource officers hear things every day, and they put out fires every day that none of us would ever know about. They do referral services. They do DCF referral services. They do behavioral health referral services. They do more than what anyone can ever imagine. But also what they do is if they hear that there's going to be a beef between two groups of individuals, and they'll get the time and the location that these events may or may not happen over the weekend or a weekday night. They put that out. That doesn't happen. When they find out about it, they take the necessary steps to make sure that those possible altercations or interactions don't happen. And that's, that is worth its weight in gold alone. And so, I really feel very strongly about our school resource officers, as you are well aware. But I also believe that it's very, very hardly known at all, especially from the people who oppose school resource officers, just exactly how much good that they do that no one will ever know about, because they build relationships and trust between the students and themselves, and they put fires out all the time. So that's all I have to say. I'm really very, very much in support of the school resource officer program. And believe me when I tell you, if we had the resources to put a police officer in every school, I would do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Spagnola. Appreciate your time and your thoughts. I'll open it up to the floor. If there's any other further discussion needed, please let me know if you want to be recognized. Commissioner Liz Brown.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Chief, for being with us tonight. I think this is a great discussion, and I think we're moving in the right direction. A lot of the angst, of course, comes from, just the societal turmoil that we're seeing throughout this country. And I think as a board, it's our responsibility to kind of really have this conversation in the public, because I think support for SROs was not the issue to me. It was the idea of, these reports coming out of the state that made Waterbury look like our students were awful and they were all being arrested and suspended. I mean, the data was just very, very disturbing to me anyway. But then Commissioner Sweeney points out, I think rightly so, that a lot of it has to do with the way things are recorded. Different police, different towns, they document differently arrests and what's adjudicated, what's not adjudicated. So I wonder if there was any thought to looking at more of a standardized way to look at this data across school districts, so that, it would be kind of a real reflection of what's going on in the district. I don't know if Chief, if you had any thoughts about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So my thoughts are that I know in Waterbury, we are extremely accurate on how we report our data. I can't speak for other cities or communities or school districts, but we work very closely. We have a very robust records management system. Our data is reported to sources that it's required to be reported to at the state level and at the federal level as far as crime and arrest is concerned. But I can't speak on, other school districts or other police departments on how they report their data or how they collect it. But I can say, just to echo some of the mayor's comments is, going back to the Office of Child Advocacy report that was, not favorable for the city as a whole.
Right.
We learned from that, especially Dr. Ruffin coming in. We had a tremendous amount of conversations about these issues. And as the mayor pointed out, those schools were not schools that had school resource officers. Right. I would be very confident in saying that if there were school resource officers that were assigned to those particular schools, the outcomes would have been significantly different. Okay. But when you have in a 1 year period or a school year period, 260 plus 911 calls to the police department, and no school resource officer there, no officer that's, intimately familiar with the student base, the administration of the school, the teachers, that officer in response to the call is somewhat limited on what tools they have and what action they can take. And I think that's why we saw, an uptick in arrests, a significant amount of arrests. And we've worked very hard to make sure that that's not going to happen again, in collaboration, with the school department. There's been training, the juvenile detectives, and the Sergeant Bennett, the OIC officer in charge of the youth squad, has frequent administrative meetings at all the schools to make sure that, we are following the proper protocol, that we're seeing what services we could provide for children before police interaction is provided. And I think it's really working well. I think it's important. But to answer your initial question, I know we're very accurate in how we report. We use the latest technology. NIBRS is the newest crime stat and arrest reporting system that we use on the state and federal level. But I can't speak for any other municipality on that.
Well, I really appreciate that thoughtful analysis, and I think the public needs to know that we are documenting, we are accurate, and the school resource officers are playing a critical role in our schools. of actually preventing our kids from being arrested and doing more than that, building those relationships. So I really appreciate all the work you've done to really transform the system because I think it's making our school district safer, but also building those community relationships that are so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Anyone else have a comment or question? Commissioner Karen Harvey, are you waving your hand?
Waving my hand. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Yep, go
All
for
right.
it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Chief Spagnola, thank you so much for taking out the time to be with us this evening. And I think that it's very, very good for us to continue with this type of communication and, reporting. I'm happy to hear that we haven't had any arrests for the year 2021. And I think things like that need to be continually reported, and also, that we need to be transparent as it relates to our SROs. My question: do we have any female SROs in any of the schools?
So currently we do not. We had a female SRO, Clarabelle Martinez, pre-COVID, but for health reasons and some other issues, she declined to go back. But we do now have Sergeant Kim Bennett, who's in charge of the youth squad and the SROs, and was an SRO, earlier on in her career. That's now in charge of the program.
Okay. So we don't have anyone physically there in the schools that are female.
Currently, right now, we do not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Looking forward to some additional, throughout the year, just kind of an update on what's going on. There is talk in the community. It may not have come to your door, but there is talk in the community, and I'm just encouraging folks, organizations to, go to your office, make appointments. I think what the major concern is with the MOU. We may have some who may ask for, that's us, the school board, may ask for a copy of that, but other than that, I think it's great, and I appreciate you taking out the time to talk with us. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Anyone else have a question or comment? I don't see anybody waving their hands. So Chief Spagnola, Mayor O'Leary, thank you very much for joining the discussion, and appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, which is the superintendent's update, I'd like to give a wholehearted hello to our two student representatives who are from my alma mater, Wilby High School. Tenley D. Salines, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, that's my name.
Thank you. And Samreen Mughal, welcome. I promise not to butcher your names going into the future. Once I learn something, I'm pretty steady going forward. But thank you for joining us tonight. And I've also been made aware that our new security individual is with us, Daniel Berry. Mr. Berry, hello and welcome. Hello, Mr. Berry. Oh, you're muted. Okay, you got the mic. You want to say anything to the group? All right. Well, for some reason your mic's not working. Sorry about that. We'll figure it out. Dr. Ruffin, we're up to your part of the production. It's called the Superintendent's Update. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. I like it when you say production, and it brings the baby back to my world.
Well, I'm from TV. I get it.
So I love the production part. It makes it flow. So we have two really large items that we're discussing this evening, One will be the special education audit review, and the other one is going to be you're going to be disclosing your logo. But I've asked our Chief Turnaround Officer Matt Brown to present the Commissioners Network schools at the next board meeting. So because I realized that the board agenda is quite packed tonight, but I would like to say and to share and to openly congratulate Wilby High School for being accepted into the Commissioners Network for the 2021-22 school year.
Yay,
And that just
Wilby.
happened at the state board meeting 2 days ago. So I'd like to start with our presentation and welcome Dr. Nyman back. And prior to that, I want to introduce another new member of our staff, and that's Mr. Miguel Pabon, who is our new Director of Pupil Services, and he is on tonight as well. So Mr. Pabon, would you like to say anything to the board and to have them formally meet you today?
Sure, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the welcome. I'm here, this is my second week this week, and so my name is Miguel Pabon. I'm sure you've probably heard my name before today, and I have been trying to get to know as many people as I can. So I know that we still live in this world of COVID and virtual reality, so have to meet people this way most of the time. But I do have a goal to try to meet as many people in person and try to go out to as many schools as possible. So that is one of my goals coming in and transition into the district. But I'm very excited to be here. I come with about 24 years of experience in urban education specifically. And I have worked in Hartford, Craig Magnet schools, the Wyndham Public Schools, and my background's in school psychology. I also was raised in Bridgeport and graduated from Bridgeport Public Schools. Urban education has been my passion and where I feel that I can make the most impact. And I also want to give thanks to the late Mr. Robert Henry. I did know him from the days back from Hartford, and he was a great person, a great mentor. And so I am very happy to be here. I am very happy to get to know people and work with the excellent people that I've already met. And I look forward to working with more people that I haven't met yet. So again, thank you for this time. I appreciate it.
Welcome aboard.
Mr. Pabon. Right before we introduced the special education audit, I noticed that Mr. Barry's microphone is now working, and so we want to welcome you too, Mr. Barry, as our school security and safety coordinator. And now I think you can speak and be heard.
I believe I can now. Can everyone hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
here you're fine. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize for that, and I'd like to just say to the board, I'm honored for the position. I was born and raised here in Waterbury. I've already been out to several of the schools already. I've loved every minute of the job so far, and I'm sure that's going to continue. So if there's anything anyone needs from my end in terms of safety and security, please feel free to reach out to me.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Okay,
Welcome.
so we bring back Dr. Nyman, who is coming in with our special education audit. And for the past several months, Mr. Schwartz has been working with the special education department. I'm sure that there is a happy dance here that we now have a director of pupil services. So I do want to recognize his hard work and his dedication to making certain that, we just kept everything moving. And Dr. Nyman, welcome this evening. We are anxiously awaiting to hear from you and your team and the work that you have done in preparing for us, our special education audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin, for that introduction. So I also want to introduce my colleague, Mr. McGuire, who's also presenting with me tonight and was one of the principal team members for the project.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we understand that it's a very packed agenda. We want to be very mindful of people's time, but at the same time, give people an opportunity to reacquaint themselves with some of the main themes that we presented last fall. We know it's been over half a year. So Mr. McGuire and I were thinking about the best way to present this, and that was to kind of review some of the main recommendations. We know that the reports, both the financial and the programmatic reports, were voluminous, very in depth, a lot of data. So we just want to provide an overview for the board as just sort of a review, and then we're going to open it up. We understand that the full report is in the possession of the board. Mr. McGuire and I have the reports in front of us. So if there's specific questions, if you could please let us know the page number and location, we can answer specifically. But we'd also let the board know, given the packed agenda tonight, we're happy to answer any questions going forward in an email format. If it just wasn't, the time tonight, or if there were other things that might have been thought of after the fact, Mr. McGuire and I do avail ourselves to the board for anything, any further clarifications. So this is excerpted right from the summary and final commentary section. So hopefully this does not look new to anybody. But again, when we think about the strategic plan that we thought would be best for the district, we came up with time frames, and what we saw is sort of the overarching themes. So there are organizational parameters, and again, we spent a lot of time talking about the paraeducator model right now. And again, we're not presuming that things have not changed since we were there, because we know that this has been a very thoughtful group and things might have changed. But at the time, the paraeducator contract was through the city, and for a number of programmatic and logistical reasons, that was not considered optimal by the stakeholders. So one of our recommendations in the report was sort of an immediate action item to have those positions moved to the district side. Reorganize the coordinator model. So there's the director, and then there was a layer of coordinators that have different functions. When we were in the district, we realized there were many things that were working well in that model, but there were some things that weren't working particularly well in terms of vertical articulation, alignment to the principles, sort of allowing leadership to have sort of spur of the moment decision making. So some of that alignment we spelled out in the report, just some thoughts for leadership to consider. So that's another, what we consider maybe a short-term action item for district leadership to consider. Behavioral assistance teams, we know how important, and again, this isn't necessarily special ed, this is for all students that might be struggling with behaviors, this idea of a centrally based assistance team that would be, again, have a direct report to central office, but have that sort of latitude and flexibility to meet students where they're at, whether it's SRBI or in special ed at the school level. From another organizational perspective, adaptation of an SLPA model, speech language pathologists are allowed to work in Connecticut. So the way we spelled that out in the report is that there would be a way to balance where you would want certified SLPs to maybe have more of the educationally complex students, but also have SLPAs. They tend to be easier to find in this market. It tends to be more of a cost-effective model as well. So that was our thinking. Sorry. Then we have some programmatic parameters under SRBI. Again, this is not special ed. This is tiered interventions, essentially, or ways that students who are struggling can be met, with a variety of interventions. And again, even though it was a special ed review, we felt like, according to, the parameters in our agreement, it was impossible to really do a thorough look at special ed without understanding those early intervention services. Because although it's not special ed, when these things don't work as well as people hope, they do become a special ed issue. We talk about a reverse SRBI model, where basically students who don't necessarily need special ed anymore would have the ability to fall into tiered interventions, tier 2 or tier 3 would be a way to meet their needs, but also make sure that students who don't need special education services anymore wouldn't be unnecessarily identified. Establish policies and procedures that contain blueprints, again, for common language, forms, and team composition. That way, everybody at each, it's a large district, over 30 schools. That way, everybody would be on the same page in terms of expectations, understanding what the continuum looks like. It would be a common, again, blueprint for staff. Another programmatic parameter within SRBI, we talk about collecting data regarding percentages of students that were referred for testing. So sort of tracking, because we know how labor intensive it is for staff and also for students. It's a lot of instructional time missed. So it's important to make sure that students that went to referral truly were in need of special education. So again, you'll see in the report, this idea of rolling up the data, a metadata base across schools, we think that was really important for the district to consider. And then the last is programmatic parameters for special education. Establish PLCs to improve IEPs, so professional learning communities. Basically, they're like-to-like meetings of special ed teachers, say across grade levels, with a coordinator, perhaps, or a principal or an assistant principal, to meet to reflect on IEP writing. It's sort of the final frontier. We do this work all the way from Maine to California, and writing an IEP that's legally defensible, that's tied to curriculum, that's cohesive is sort of, it can be a struggle, even for the finest educators. So it clearly requires a lot of attention. Creating a plan for students with disabilities and the graduation rates. We talk about Career Tech Ed, CTE. We love our initials in special ed, so I apologize all the acronyms here, but we do have a glossary in the report. So one of the things that we found was, and again, not surprising, students with disabilities, it can be a challenge for them to graduate. So Career Tech Ed or alternate pathways for student engagement can be a really powerful way for students to be engaged. Co-teaching exists, I think you'll see it in the report, or you have seen it, that co-teaching where you have a gen ed and a special ed teacher together, they do exist sort of sporadically across the district, but it's not a systemic model, which we really like, and it meets a lot of students' needs. So instituting co-teaching with administrative oversight and logistics, we think is a really important initiative. And then rebranding the special programs with requisite personnel and physical plant capacities. One of the real celebrations in the report was a lot of students, or most students, are served within the districts compared to other districts in Waterbury's DIRG, where it's basically like in other urban districts in Connecticut. Waterbury does an exemplary job keeping kids within the district in the least restrictive environment, whether their neighborhood or at least the district school. But there are ways to make those special programs even stronger with some of these parameters. So that was sort of a recap of what we saw as the main findings. We open up to the board if you have any specific questions about the report, our methodology, or the report itself.
Are there any questions from our group? Karen Harvey, is that your hand up? I'm sorry. Anybody got a question? It's hard for me to see everybody, guys. I got to scroll through the cameras with this share thing.
I have a question.
All right, Liz, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I had a couple of questions in terms of facilities. Did you look at the facilities at all? Because unfortunately, we still have a lot of these programs in basements, and that has always bothered me. I wondered if you had any suggestions, or maybe that's for our facilities study that we're about to embark on. I always felt that, putting these kids in the basements was just not good. So I don't know if that was part of your.
It certainly was, and it was certainly a theme that emerged because part of our methodology is we visited the schools that house the special programs, and the stakeholders certainly commented upon that. They felt that the students truly were separated, not just, right. Physically they were separated, and that led to sort of a belief that they weren't part of the school's fabric of the community. We also realized that sometimes there's a logistical reason for that. There's just, there's not a lot of space. But to the degree that students are on the same floor as students in gen ed, I mean, Mr. McGuire and I do a lot of these walkthroughs, And again, we know this is sort of pie in the sky, but in some schools, the students with disabilities, let's say there's a program for 3 and 4th graders that's self-contained, they're right next to the 3 and 4th graders who are typical students. And that's a very important symbolic setup. So yes, that certainly was a theme that emerged, was the physical space. And what we're talking about in terms of physical playing capacity, we're talking about that, but we're also talking about students that might have, severe medical needs, that might need, a bathroom as part of their, their classroom to meet their ADL needs. So that's also part of the conversation.
Good. Yeah, and I think as the district, as I mentioned, we're embarking upon a very thorough facilities study. So hopefully that will these two areas will align. The other question I had was about early, the different, special education, and children with learning disabilities are two different things. And I think sometimes we've over characterize students as special ed when they maybe had a reading problem or a language problem. Was that addressed at all in terms of appropriate IEPs or appropriate ways for the interventions to occur? Because
Great question. Yeah, I think that speaks more to the SRBI discussion, the reverse SRBI, where students can get supported. We certainly, and I think there's some really good data there about not just the number of students with disabilities that were classified, but the classifications themselves. There's a figure there that talks about students with SLD, OHI, and speech language impairment that are really the 3 high prevalence, low needs areas. So the SRBI discussions really, are there ways for the students that might be more curriculum challenged than educationally disabled to have their needs met? Good.
And my last question has to do with parental involvement. And I really am concerned and would like to see us as a district really look at how we really are partnering with parents, especially with children with special needs or learning disabilities or learning, just delays. Because I've often heard from parents that they feel that there's a disconnect between what's happening in the school and their teachers' education. I think we've gotten better over the years, to tell you the truth, but I think just working with the parents in a more proactive way as part of the system. Did that come up at all in your analysis, or do you have any recommendations for a really good model of really working with families in a more proactive way and not just reactive when there's a problem?
Yes, and to answer your question, I think Appendix B2, which starts on page 33 and goes to 34, gives some really good descriptive data about how parents felt about their their inclusion in the PPT process.
Okay.
I don't want to presume, but we certainly, if this is something that Dr. Ruffin or Mr. Pabon would like, we certainly do have resources for parent outreach. It has been hard with COVID because parent outreach is the hard under the best of circumstances. Now with COVID, with another layer of, disconnection. But there's resources. And again, I'm sure Mr. Pabon has realized this, but a SEPTA model that exists in Connecticut, the special ed PTA. There's resources that exist but one of the recommendations we have in the report is to have a special ed program for parents, but have it to be school-based, because parents have connection to schools, not necessarily a central office.
Good.
Michael,
I think that's good that parents feel supportive. And I love that idea of having like a support group of parents, because we did, as a board, when Commissioner Harvey had a family engagement task force, we did meet with a lot of these state organizations. And by law, I believe we're supposed to have I think we do have a DPAC council that maybe we could really look at how it can really be more instructive and be more substantive at this point. Especially COVID hit, as you know, and these things kind of went by the side. But I appreciate the report, and I look forward to implementation and working with Mr. Pabon, because this has been an area of concern for the board for many years. And I think we're getting a handle on the problem, and I think we have the willingness to tackle some of these things now. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Brown, I'd like to just follow up on this particular issue, if I may. For all of the challenges that COVID has presented to us in education, there have been a few surprise silver linings. One of those has been, and we're working very much in a mentoring model with administrators around the country now. And what we're finding in our partner districts is that the surprise about the COVID limitations has been that because we've had to conduct, for example, IEP meetings via Zoom, like this meeting, more of our parents of special needs students have become engaged. It's become easier for them to access us and for us to access them via a Zoom meeting because of childcare, employment, a whole variety of different issues. So what I'm hearing from our partner districts is because of the technology and the remote approach, more of our parents who have been unable to engage are now engaged. So I think there's maybe a lesson we can take from that experience once we get back, hopefully, to a more traditional in-person attendance in schools, where we can say, okay, maybe this can be an option available to keep those relationships building.
A wonderful insight. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question before we move on? Commissioner Melissa Serrano Adorno, I see your hand waving.
Thank you, Mr. Pagano. My question basically is just on the data. Do you have any more recent information on the data? I've noticed it's from 2011 to 2016.
Yes, so the data part of our report was done really last spring through the fall. Unfortunately, the Connecticut Department of Ed tends to lag in terms of their comparative data. The data we have, like we had pulled some of the other DERGs, districts in the DERG, like Willimantic or Wyndham, New London, New Haven. We didn't get a great return, about half. But that data where we're comparing in the appendices, like behavioral health, that's 2020-21. But unfortunately, we're somewhat hamstrung because the available data, the public data, is usually at least 2 years behind real time.
Thank you guys so much for your time in this. Like Miss Commissioner Brown had mentioned, this is something that our district has been struggling with for a while. So your feedback and recommendations are really important to our district. Thank you.
So we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey, is that your hand waving?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to comment. I thank you so much for this information, but I basically wanted to just kind of echo what Commissioner Brown, stated in regards to family engagement. I mean, it's my hope that we have now someone, Miss Brown, and I don't know, how much that, she would be involved with this as it relates to our special needs, but this is something that our parents continue to ask for, is that engagement, those resources. So, I appreciate the report, and you gave a specific page to look at. Could you repeat that again?
Sure. The appendix B2, that's where we talk about the responses to the surveys.
Yeah.
And I think what you'll see is the parent part of the interview, we summarized it again because we didn't want to divulge anything that would reveal identities. The top of page 35 is where you'll see the responses from the parents, and they're actually, despite the challenges, the average responses were quite strong. They seem to feel very good about the processes at the school level.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm all set, President Pagano.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Anybody else have a question or comment before we move on? Gentlemen, thank you very much for presenting this data tonight. It was appreciated, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you very much. We
Dr.
really
Ruffin?
appreciate that. Thank you very much. We did appreciate that, and I see many of our special education supervisors are on tonight, along with Mr. Pavone. I want to thank you for being here, and we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll study it internally, and we'll certainly make certain that we have some action steps within our strategic plan to address what we will be doing across multiple levels of engaging in this work. Since Mr. Brown is not presenting tonight, I'd like Ms. Wyckoff to speak with the board about our logo and our district website and what that's going to be looking like moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Good evening to you, to the mayor, to the commissioners, and to everyone on this call. And I'm going to share a very brief presentation with you. We are so excited to be here, to bring you all an update. And I just want to, highlight all the individuals who have been heavily involved in this process. We've had 3 committees invested in this work for several months now, under the leadership of Mr. Zuda, who I believe is on this call as well. And just want to thank all of them for their continued efforts in this project, which is a significant amount of time, well invested, and we're extremely excited in moving forward with the logo. Just a very brief background. When we started thinking about the design of this logo, we knew that we wanted it to embody the portrait of a graduate, as that is our key element, and a vision that Dr. Ruffin brought to this district. And it truly articulates, our aspirations for all of our students and anchors much of the work that we do. And when we met with Revise, who is our web host and our designer for the logo, we really wanted something just very simple and classic that over time people would be able to build a connection to. And I know the commissioners have seen this, as has the cabinet, and I'm excited to present it to you in a formal setting, but this is the logo that we have designed as a proposal for all of you. And these are the colors that were chosen by the school community. We did put it out to a vote, and people interpret it in different ways, but we do feel that it really embodies our academic excellence and our pursuit of academic excellence, as well as a portrait of a graduate. So I'll just let everyone take that in for a moment. And again, this is a proposal that will be going for a formal vote later this evening. And just to talk a little bit about the fonts were chosen very meticulously, very carefully. We tried to pair the font with what the city uses and use a very dramatic W, which you can see there. So again, a great deal of thought did go into this process, which has been going on for several months now. And just on a last note, we wanted to give you a little snapshot of what the website header will look like with the city logo and where our logo will be placed to show that complementary and that connection. So this is just a snapshot of the header. It's still in the design phase, but the Waterbury, the W that you see on your screen on the right, that is fixed, and that will link to the city website, and our logo will be on the left. And obviously it's not there yet, as it hasn't been formally adopted, but that is how it is coming along. And again, I know Mr. Zuda is on the call, but we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody got questions for this part of our discussion? I don't see any hands waving, Sujatas. Oh, wait, Liz is doing something. Oh, she's cheering you on. All right. Any questions for Sujata and team? And all right, Sujata, thank you very much. I think you mission accomplished. Dr. Ruffin, back to you.
Yes, commissioners, that's where we are with the superintendent's update for this evening. And I thank all of you for your attention to the work that we have ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Matt Brown isn't going tonight, Dr. Ruffin?
Not tonight. I've asked
Okay.
Matt to just hold on until another meeting because we're jam-packed tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next agenda item is a request approval of increase in credit requirements of the Waterbury of the Waterbury Adult Education High School graduation/diploma. Dr. Epperson, Mr. Schwartz, and there's one other person, Musto?
Tony.
Okay.
Good evening. That's me.
Okay. The floor is yours.
The state of Connecticut, the Adult Education Bureau is recommending that all adult educations for next year require the same amount of credits as their current comprehensive high schools. As you see in item 3, the attachment that came with the packets, ours is currently at 21, whereas the rest of the schools in Waterbury are 22 credits currently. This is normal throughout the state because the state minimum requirement is 20 credits. So they're recommending that for next year we go to 22, but while we're at that stage right now, we might as well go to 25 the following year, just like the rest of the comprehensive high schools are going to go to 25. So we're basically following the recommendations that were outlined in the adult high school credit diploma program manual that the state of Connecticut Adult Education Bureau issues. And the breakdown that you have in front of you is what was recommended from the committee when we met in 2019. It was designed to accommodate all adult education programs, not necessarily Waterbury. We have very small districts. We also have very large districts like Waterbury for adult education. And the plan is basically to accommodate all of the adult education programs. And the breakdown for increasing it to from 21 to 22, we're just increasing one elective. And then when we go from 22 to 25 the following year, we're also increasing elective. But like I said, some of the recommendations that are from the administrative manuals, we're basically following their guidelines.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Commissioner Tom Van Stone, do I see your hand raised?
You do, Mr. President. Thank you. Through you. Mr. Musto, nice to see you.
How you doing, sir?
Okay. I'll see you at graduation like I always do.
Thank you.
This worries me a little bit, though. We probably don't have data that shows how long someone would need to get those credits because it was never the goal to get that many. But what does it mean to an adult learner who now needs 5 more credits?
It's definitely going to make it longer for them to graduate. But they're recommending this. But I also want you all to know that currently right now, there's a bill up in Hartford called SB 881, where it's probably going to go through, and they are going to increase it to 25 for adult education. So it's going to eventually happen. Yes, it is going to take an adult learner way much more time now to graduate Waterbury adult education. But having said that, we should be the same as our comprehensive high schools because we don't want word getting out that, hey, you can graduate Waterbury adult education with 22 credits, but will be high school 25 credits. You'll have a lot of dropouts trying to come here to make it easier for them. So I understand your concern, and I kind of agree with you. It is going to make it longer for them to graduate.
How are we set up to have those additional classes and schedules put together to let them be successful? That's another piece.
One of the other drawbacks, you're right, for the smaller adult ed schools, they probably are going to need to hire more instructors. Right now, I mean, if we hired more instructors, that would be great for me, but we can get along with what we have with our course, the way we selected the course selections. I should be able to accommodate the extra classes, but like I said, it's going to take longer.
Right. Do the students know this is coming down the road?
We've been warning them for the last 2 years that we are switching to 22. We've been mentioning that we are going to 25 the following year, so it will not be a shock to any current student.
No, they'll be shocked.
Oh.
Okay, you know me, I'm a big fan of our adult program. And
I know you are, sir.
It definitely worries me of the burden we made.
When we met in 2019, we discussed every pro and con to the plan, but unfortunately it has to be done. And I can assure you, our students will still get 110% of our abilities down here like we always do.
I appreciate that. And thanks for the explanation on this. I saw it on the agenda and I got concerned right away. So, but we always succeed in the end. So I trust you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Stone. Anybody else got their hands up? Charles Stango, is your hand up?
Yes, it is, Mr. President.
You're recognized. The floor is
Thank
yours.
you. Just one quick question to Mr. Musto. Am I correct in my information that there is no cost to students on getting their high school credits and diploma?
No, even the books are free.
Okay.
We can't charge for books.
All right. That I thought so. I just wanted to be sure it wasn't more credits meaning more money, but
no,
there is. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Stango. Commissioner Liz Brown and then Commissioner Karen Harvey after her.
Good evening, Mr. Musto. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
I just had a question in terms of the additional credits. Is there an opportunity or how did you experience virtual learning? Is there an opportunity for these students to continue virtually and get these credits, kind of independent study kind of a scenario?
We've always had distance learning here, so they will be able to continue the distant learning classes that we offer in history, English, and science.
Great.
And
okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Karen Harvey, the floor is
All
yours.
right, thank you. Thank you, President Pagano. Mr. Musto, just curious, do you provide devices for the students who are involved with distant learning?
Yes, we have more than enough to cover our students, our enrolled students.
All right, so
anyone who requests one gets one. We haven't denied anybody yet.
Okay, and just curious also, what is your teacher to student ratio?
But it all depends, Commissioner. On a normal registration day, a semester, I should say, we enroll around 600 students, which is spread out throughout all our teachers. Our attendance, just like in every other school, isn't as good as we want it to be. These are adult learners, once again, with jobs and things like that. So a lot of them are not successful because of attendance. So we lose a few, over a third throughout the semester. So if I was to throw out a number, it all depends on also the size of our classrooms down here. 1 to 25 in a big classroom, 1 to maybe 12 to 13 in one of our smaller classrooms.
Okay.
But they're never fully 25, I can assure that from my experience.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm all set, President Pagano.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Anybody else got a request for a comment or question? I don't see anybody's hand waving. Mr. Musto, thank you for joining us. And I'm a big fan of Larry Acella, so I thank you for taking care of him.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, thank you. Our next agenda item is a request, academic office update / curriculum overview from January 27, 2001 Curriculum Committee. The law firm of D. Schwartz et al. Is going to be presenting.
Oh, I wouldn't dare to be that verbose. Good evening, President Pagano, Vice President Harvey, Commissioners, Superintendent. Thank you for allowing me to give you an academic office update. I do know our time here is limited, and we did present this to the curriculum committee way back when, and we're on now with a few changes, few updates from then. But we thought the curriculum committee thought it important to come to the workshop, and I appreciate this opportunity to share with you some of the things that we've been able to do. This is just a snippet. I've asked each supervisor to try to come up with a slide of the most important points of updates they want to convey to the board. And then, of course, some supervisors want to outdo the other ones and gave me 3 slides. And so I'll try to go through those as fast as possible, but give them credit where credit is due, and obviously the teachers that work in those departments. So elementary mathematics, we've introduced the new curriculum this year. I know something that Commissioner Van Stone and the rest of the curriculum committee was very excited about, introducing that new curriculum, obviously aligned to the standards. It's gone very well. Tough year to introduce new curriculum, but we've done it. Professional learning, curriculum documents that are common throughout the district. We're getting better and better at that. And I hope I'm sharing the right screen now, because I can't see which one's sharing, but the curriculum committee, the curriculum department has aligned documents, and they do have common themes to them with timelines. Do you see that timeline and theme and instruction, or you yes, you do see it? Okay, great. And so basically what you'll see in our curriculums moving forward is the units, the timeline, scope and sequence for the teachers, standards, the assessments associated with those units. And then in each unit overview, you'll get your basic unit summary, your overall essential questions for those units. And then when you get down, don't want to go too fast, but when you get down to the actual days, and when you look at, for example, day 85, 86, what are some prerequisite skills that are needed to be able to tackle this lesson? That gives you some information to the teacher, so that if she or he knows that you may need to do some pre-teaching prior to the lesson, this gives you a little hint for that. I'm really excited about continuing to do our learning target and success criteria work, embedding those to our curriculum. Quick overview and reminder for the board: learning targets are what students are, what are they learning? What are they to know in this lesson? And success criteria is, how do you know it? What can you do as a result of this new learning? And all the way through the standards, the academic vocabulary, and the blended learning resources that could be available to students as a result of this lesson. And again, elementary mathematics is highlighting this for us, but it is being embedded throughout the district. And Jan decided to show us a few work samples. For example, at the kindergarten level, of sometimes we may have questions of, well, how are students using some of these manipulatives, using some of this virtual learning throughout this time? And so you can see an example of kindergarten students using virtual Unifix cubes. Those are the cubes we all used to connect as kids and make tens and count out ones. So we can't do that with virtual learners, but you could see we have the next best thing with using Unifix cubes on the screen, and students are drawing and writing it on the screen and using those as manipulatives. Grade 1, using the 10 frames here and counting on, and a teacher adding in some comment to the student. Awesome, you made a 10 to add. And so this is the interaction, which is really cool. I think virtually that you would typically see that type of comment on a paper somewhere that probably gets thrown out or eventually lands somewhere. But the great thing about this is it stays as a student record for the year. It can be accessed at any time. There was some feedback, I don't know if you noticed, on the first page as well. Great work showing partners of 6. Here's some counting strategies here for our second graders as they add. And as you can see, the student is breaking the 30 into 10s and 1s. using that strategy to add. Another example of using virtual manipulatives to be able to show student work and to be able to provide feedback. Secondary mathematics also implemented a new curriculum this year in middle school, something that we desperately needed. And so I want to thank the board for approving that. Again, always an interesting year to introduce that, but it's gone fairly well. We were able to secure professional learning throughout the year. And what really helped us, to be honest, is that half day schedule in the beginning that allowed us so much professional learning time in the afternoon. So in some ways, our ability to pull off the curriculums has been more robust this year than it has in the past. And you'll see that many of our eventually, when our new website is up and running, we're going to link to a lot of the academic websites. I've been in conversation with Sujatha about that, but the supervisors have done a great job of connecting to their teachers. And at the end of this, I'll show you how we plan on connecting to parents even more moving forward. But each one has created a website to be able to connect to teachers, provide those resources, but also provide them with additional professional learning opportunities as they go throughout the year. Elementary reading. So, you know, we've tried very hard to focus on small group instruction around the foundational skills using over 400 virtual lessons we've created. So the Waterbury Public Schools is now housed, and we have them for forever moving forward, is 400 virtual lessons created, which we know we will put to good use no matter what the school year looks like in the future or school day looks like. Now that we have those, we can provide those for students who may need to access those if they're sick, or if it's a snow day and we have those virtual lessons ready to go, or for some reason a student is homebound and cannot make it to school. So great opportunity here now to use this and leverage this so that learning can continue at home. We also worked on close reading of complex text and building our knowledge through wonders. And I hope this video plays when I click it. Just an example of a teacher interacting with a small group.
So I got my buddy letter again. What is my sound, everybody? Wah. Wah. I love it. Here we go. What is my sound? Yeah, blend it. And I'm going to go down to my diagraph. Here we go. Closing it in. What is that word? Quack. And we know what animal does that.
Well, we chose the 25-second video. Obviously, there's much more to the lesson, but a great example of a teacher really working hard on blending those words, getting that together, and students engaging and being excited. I didn't quite hear if they got to the animal, but I'm going to assume we got to duck by the end of that.
So I've got my buddy.
Okay. Secondary reading. So Dr. Eichler has done a great job and has really helped lead the way with some of our technology instruction as well. So what she's been able to do there, and I'd like to highlight, you know, her website as well, is her staff only login required website, which I won't go into now, is just a plethora of professional learning, sequence of professional learning opportunities that she's provided for her teachers throughout the year. She's working really well, as many of our secondary supervisors are, with their department heads. I just want to let the board know, because I mean, sometimes we talk about these things and I don't know if you hear them again. We worked really hard at redefining and working with what the department head job is. And now with that strong connection to the secondary supervisors, they're meeting on a continual basis. They're really leveraging and using those department heads well. And they've started working with those middle school content coordinators through the Commissioners Network schools, and have really found that to be a relief to be able to get into the middle schools, because it was really hard. There was no really direct connection into the content areas in middle schools. And so now with the Commissioner Network schools adding content coordinators has been very helpful getting into their schools and working with them. And so with that, one of the things that we've also been able to do is Dr. Eichler has, during those professional learning sessions, she was able to create teacher choice with 3 courses over the course of the year. And we know choice in adult learners is always important. And so I was really proud of the work she did with her professional learning throughout the year. As we continue to rewrite curriculum, obviously, I think that goes without saying that all of our supervisors are rewriting curriculum, and they have, and I'm sure you've seen them on the board agendas, have an extensive summer curriculum writing teams coming in to refine what they've been doing. We've also introduced recently a new creative curriculum for preschool. I know Commissioner Brown, you're very familiar with that creative curriculum, and Commissioner Dan Stone again saw this through the curriculum committee, and so that's been going well, and so students have learned through the direct instruction and family coaching model, which included a lot of work with families at the beginning, trying to figure out how to do this distance learning thing with families at home for preschool kids was a challenge, but also a learning experience for us. And we were happy to be able to utilize that. So we have the scope and sequence for remote instruction now. We created guidelines for assessment, and we had professional learning aligned to social, emotional, and remote learning instruction for young children. We still did our planned virtual family nights, and we also continued this work of the Circle of Security Parenting Program with members of the Family Resource Center at Wilson School. Social studies, as you know, we are going to be offering the African American, Latino, Puerto Rican Studies class at all high schools next year. And we have members that will be attending the professional learning sessions that the state board and I believe CERC will be putting on for over the summer. And that was in our program of studies, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And what social studies really focused in on, and you'll see this alignment with science, is really beefing up our formative assessments. A lot of times we start with processing the curriculum, but we also need assessments and common assessments to know how students are doing in the district. And so I can soundly say that 3 to 4 years ago, it was really hard to tell Dr. Ruffin, like, how are students doing in the middle and high schools. It was difficult because we didn't have enough data to really be able to pull on common assessments to be able to give her an accurate description of how students are achieving. And so as we adopt these curriculums, it's important to know that we are creating common formative assessments so that a 6th grader at Wallace is receiving the same assessment as the 6th grader at Westside. And that data is getting put into a system and is being looked at data teams and being discussed at team meetings as well. Science spent a lot of time this year creating those CFAs, common formative assessments as well. And Carrie has done an awesome job stepping in for John after his departure, has brought the chemical hygiene plan to the end zone for us. John started it, she finished it off, and so that was really important work for her to be able to meet OSHA requirements for our labs and our classrooms. She was also able to create an opportunity for our students to have our 2nd graders to work with Flanders Nature Center with live virtual sessions right there this year, which I've heard nothing but positive comments about that. Also, 5th grade students were able to do a project, do project-based learning through Starbase, even though they weren't able to visit there this year. And Gear Up was able to supply STEM kits to all the 8th grade students in the district to model the new 3 laws of motion covered in their 3rd unit. So the big curriculum piece for science this year has been the development of not just curriculum, but assessments for all students across the grade levels. Physical education, health, and wellness. We've passed several different curriculums for them as well throughout the year. I do have to give a big shout out to PE, music, art, library, media, our fine arts teachers across the district. really did an amazing job, especially in the beginning of this year and throughout the pandemic, where they were really kind of trying to figure out the best way to teach students the standards in their course, but at the same time filling in. Some of our schools were down staff, but trying to manage asynchronous learning in the afternoon. Joe's team there was no exception. They did put a primary focus in the new curriculum established, looking specifically at how they can also support the social emotional learning for students throughout the year, especially in those health and wellness courses. And we also were able to upgrade a lot of the equipment at our 32 schools through funding sources, working with Doreen, Title IV. Fine arts, not to be outdone. Holly, of course, being the visual and fine arts person, you can tell which slide is hers because hers is the most intriguing with student artwork, right? I'm so happy. I just talked about Title IV. It's amazing. You get a supervisor in, and then they can start digging and doing the work because we've purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars of instruments for students here in Waterbury. And I don't know if that's been lost in the shuffle for everyone. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for instruments for students. And I just talked to Ray Sanavasi maybe a few months ago, and he was like, a kid at Christmas. He was just like her, or kid during their birthday, whatever holiday they celebrate. It's just he was so excited that these new instruments were coming, and I had to remind him you have to let the kids eventually use them because he can't just keep them shiny and new, right? And so he was laughing. He's like, "Oh no, they're going to get them." And he's a great teacher for us, and so our goal is really to alleviate the need to really rent or purchase eventually for students. And so we were able to purchase that through Title IV, and Doreen's office was able to help us secure that funding, and Linda Rick Barron has been instrumental, pun intended, to getting that the music program off the ground and running. Our visual arts teachers all received document cameras and watercolor art sketchbooks to support their curriculum. So every teacher this year was able to use a doc cam as they work with virtual students. So that what a doc cam does is it's a camera over your work so that the students can actually see what you're doing, which is so important for our visual arts teachers to see kind of if they're modeling something or not. And so that was really cool. That was awesome that we were able to do that for teachers and students. There's a whole lot of digital curriculum that we're working on. We had 2 teachers who applied to go to UConn to be able to do ECE courses. I'm hoping for more teachers. And we were able, Waterbury Public Schools hosted the Connecticut Arts Administrators meeting to support fine arts in our community, and is really raising the level of the discussion of what Waterbury is doing in fine arts across the state. I told you she put in 3 slides, so I'm gonna just remind you all that Artrageous happened. It was a 5-day show for our community. I know many of you were able to look at that and view that, and it constantly not surprised. I'm just constantly amazed of the talent we have in this district, and that we need to continue to support students in their pursuit of fine arts. And I just think we have some of the most talented students in the entire state. And then I'll let the other pieces speak for themselves as we go through this. I did mention last time at the Mattituck we had a virtual tour for students to be able to go to the Mattituck to view A Face Like Mine. And just last piece is when we all can come together at some point in the future. When you come to central office, you're going to see something very different than what you've seen in the past. We have 300 pieces of student art adorning our walls now in central office. And so Holly was able to work with the students, work with some of our amazing central office staff to get student artwork here and in their frames and posted across the walls. It reminds us every day when we walk in, not just that our students are so talented, but that we are walking in here to serve them. Mike is not afraid to try to spend money, and so he's been very good at trying to get in there and increase an area where quite frankly I think has been underfunded, or I should say, I guess, not really looked at, not necessarily a funding issue, but not really focused in on. And so Mike has been able to come in and take a look at what we have, and so far, just to remind the board, we have Educators Rising program here, and new UConn education courses that will be coming to the board soon with that are associated with those Educators Rising courses. We're hoping that students that are in Educators Rising are going to be able to take 2 UConn courses before they graduate, and graduate with 2 UConn courses in that would be not just associated with UConn, but a credit from UConn. And everyone knows the Ag School of Education is one of the best in the state. We are going to be offering drone technology, engineering, software development next for next year. So we've gone through that process this year for that. We're also working with Post University now, trying to increase our ability to offer management, leadership, marketing, and accounting classes. Really excited to be bringing to you some of this middle school curriculum as well. That will be coming. Amazon Future Engineer program in computer science will be coming to the board soon. So a little precursor to that, and a pre-apprenticeship high school training program. And so right now, Mike is in the middle of continuing to develop his pathways in cybersecurity, robotics, video game development, banking services, and planning to expand his computer science offerings. Bilingual ESOL Education Department, Adela has been busy working on Spanish for native speakers, but also modifying how we go about teaching secondary science, and has been working closely on how to provide modification accommodations for students who need differentiation based on their English proficiency. One of the things that she's really worked hard on is developing these curriculums, including a newcomers curriculum, and also the seal of biliteracy, which we've talked about, I think, previously at our last curriculum committee meeting. I believe at that time we had 37 students who achieved the seal of biliteracy. I'm proud to say as of today we have 83 students now who have achieved the seal of biliteracy, and that means these students it's not just us saying, hey, you're pretty good at that language, you should get that seal. They have actually passed a standardized assessment that proves that they are fluent in that additional language. And you can see the breakdown. We have 7 Albanian, 1 Bosnian, 3 French, 1 German, 5 Italian, 6 Portuguese, and 60 Spanish. And so what a great representation. And I know this list will grow, not just in length of languages, but also in numbers. I want to give a shout out to Juan in the Human Capital Office, who's worked with the academic office, but they've really taken the bulk of the work over with this. And now we have over 725 Google certified educators in Waterbury Public Schools. And I know he's working hard with his group to expand this out to office staff as well. And so I just want to give a shout out to them, because that Google certification really proves that teachers are able to use the Google platform to reach students on a daily basis. And our program of studies, I will pop this up really quickly. So for the first time, and at least since I've been here, and I think in the history of Waterbury, but I could be wrong, we have a common program of studies for the entire district. So one program of studies that students can access, and that they can access courses from, and that they can choose their courses that are offered at their school. And so as you can see in this program of studies, after I get through all the important stuff, it gets to the actual courses, and it outlines for students. I'll get there. It's like a 120-page document. Not bad for our first shot at it, but talks about advanced placement courses, early college, high. But if you get into the English department, and it is a Google Doc, and you can click on the table of contents to get to your faster, which is what I probably should have done. But when you get to the English department, it gives you an example of what course sequence to take. But what I love about it is English 9. What does the course comprise of? Oh, they're going to be mad I messed that up. What does the course comprise of, and where is it offered? How many credits do you get? And course code for our counselors. And every course that we offer is here. And the best part is and we're still communicating this out because this is brand new for students. One of the cool things about this is flattening what we offer in the district into one document. We're still communicating this out to students. I think it's starting to make its way into the student population. It hasn't. I don't think it's as universal yet as we would like. But again, our first year getting this out, we sent it out Parent Square. So thanks to Sujatha, we've communicated to parents. We've said, hey, talk to your kids about what they're taking next year. These are all the offerings. And we have students who have already contacted their counselors, and Irene and I are working on students from other schools taking classes in high school across the town. And so we have students that are looking to take some classes offered at Kennedy, for example, a Spanish class at Kennedy that's not being offered at their school. And they're working with their counselor now to do that. I informed Dr. Ruff of that. She was like super excited because that was part of the whole breaking this down and making sure that students have equitable access. Obviously, we have to offer those courses to students that are in their home school first. And I'm interested to see how long that list has grown since Nairi and I have talked. But last time we had, I think we had about 30 or 40 requests across the district to take classes in a school that is not the one they're attending, but they would like to earn credit in. And so it's going to be a little bit of a logistical thing for us to figure out, but that's okay. That's the whole point, is to be able to offer these for students because they're all Waterbury Public School students, and we're going to do the best we can to accommodate them. And last slide, I promise, parent connection. So I'm working on with the academic office to ensure that we are, one of the things that drives me nuts as a parent is I don't know what my kids are learning sometimes. And what I want to be able to do is provide students not just with this information in multiple languages, but be able to give you give parents a general overview. And this is a great example here of grade 6 and what they're learning and reading. So what's the unit they're learning about? What are some standards? What are the texts that we're reading? What's the and basically what we're going to be doing here also is adding in some additional links that could be able to provide the parents with ways they could support students. We talked about this again at the supervisor meeting this morning and said maybe, and I believe Linda Riddick talked to the parent liaisons today about getting some feedback from parents about what they want from the academic department in terms of information that they'd like to see on the websites. And so we're going to be working with parent liaisons as well. I see this project taking us into 21-22 school year and hopefully being finished by the end of that, so that all parents can have easily accessible information of what their student is learning by grade or by course, and provide them with that support. And that's that.
Thank you, Attorney Schwartz. Very nicely done. Any questions for Darren? And I'm trying to look at everybody here's smiling face now. I don't see any hands waving. So Darren, it looks, wait 1 minute. Ann Sweeney put her hand up. No, she did. She was cleaning the lens on her phone.
She was waving me up.
No questions? Darren, you must have done a great job. Thank you very much, sir. Salute. Our next item is item number 5, a request approval of the revised Connecticut State Department of Education's ED 099 agreement for child nutrition programs, authorized signatures change forms. Linda Franzese, are you still with us? I saw her name up there earlier. I don't see her there now.
You're muted, Linda.
Oh, how am I now? Good?
Oh, you're there now, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
The floor is
So,
yours.
I am here this evening to request approval for the revised Connecticut State Department of Education for the Child Nutrition Program Authorized Signature Change Form. So this form is revised when someone on the authorized signers list departs, as Mr. Clark has, and Doreen Viola will be replacing him on the form, and that's in addition to Dr. Ruffin.
Okie dokie. Any questions for Linda? Linda, you hit it out of the park. Nobody's got a question.
Okay, good.
Thank
you very much, everyone.
All right.
Have a good
night.
Have a good night as well. Thank you.
Next item, agenda item 6, request approval of a memorandum of agreement with the University of Connecticut NEAG School of Education. Attorney Darren Schwartz.
All right, this has been years in the making, and I'm very excited to bring to you tonight this opportunity for our district to work with University of Connecticut, and we'll be working with a nonprofit called Math for America out of New York. And basically, what we want to be able to do is select 15 math and science fellows here in Waterbury. So you will hear that word fellow and fellowship as a result of this conversation. And what we want to be able to do is identify our highly qualified, high quality teachers in the STEM field, specifically starting in science and mathematics. We'll be working with UConn to develop a 4-year fellowship for these teachers. The teachers that are inducted and accepted into this fellowship will receive a stipend of $5,000 a year to stay in Waterbury and stay as a teacher in Waterbury. Obviously, we'll work with Attorney Shaw to draw up those terms with those teachers as they sign on. But this is to accomplish a few things. One, to develop the teachers in those critical areas of science and mathematics. Two, to recruit teachers into Waterbury to say, hey, if you come to Waterbury, you have the opportunity to be a fellow and earn this additional money and take part of this prestigious fellowship. And then 3, to retain the teachers because many of our science and math teachers, as you know, board, they come and they go and they are hard to fill. And so really, if they get part of this fellowship and we can keep them for at least 4 additional years, get them involved in something, and then pass that down to future fellows, because we do see this as a long-term relationship where they'll be working with future fellows as well. It's just an exciting opportunity to do this. And I thank Dr. Ruffin for seeing this through with me. And I hope the board agrees.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate your words. Anybody got questions or comments for him? I don't see anybody's hand waving. So Darren, you hit it out of the ballpark again. Thank you. Our next agenda item 6A is a request approval for the CSDE Career and Technical Education Supplemental Enhancement Grant for 2021. Louise Ellen Brown, Mike Marotti, and Darren Schwartz. I don't know who's going to carry the torch, but we're standing by.
Well,
let me just begin. Oh, did you want to go ahead, Darren?
No, I was going to say I'll let Louise go.
Okay. Well, good evening, President Pagano, Vice President Harvey, Commissioners, and Dr. Ruffin. This evening, this grant opportunity is presented to you because it was just released by the State Department of Education and is due by the 21st of this month. It's an enhancement to the Perkins regular annual grant. You may apply for up to $50,000, and the project that Mike Marotti and Darren have selected is to seek funding for digital curricula for 6 new courses for the 21-22 year. The grant has a quick turnaround, not only in application, but it will be awarded in early June and needs to conclude by June 30. So if we're successful in obtaining this competitive grant award, we'll be able to secure the curriculum during the summertime in time for the new school year. Are there any questions?
Any questions, anyone?
Mike, did you want to add, Darren?
Mike or Darren, you have anything to add for Louise?
No.
Okay. Any questions? Well, thank you very much. Now, this says you need a consensus requested here.
I did request consensus, President Pagano, because since your voting meeting is not until the 20th with a deadline of the 21st, I'd like to be mindful of the competing proposals we're working on and devote time to this only if you would think it, that the board would be inclined to approve.
I have no problem with going with that request. Anyone else have a comment for that? I take it we're going to take a all in favor.
Aye. You can't vote.
No.
You can't vote.
Okay. So
Let's
you
go
have
aye.
thumbs up.
Yeah, there you go.
You got a lot of thumbs. So
Okay.
we're behind you, Louise, 100%.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next agenda item is item number 7, is a request approval to apply for the Connecticut Department of Emergency and Public Protection Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security Security Infrastructure Competitive Grant Program Round 5. Louise Allen Brown, Mr. Berry, Ms. Viola, and Will Zuda. Who's carrying that torch?
I had told the gentleman that I would start, and
Okay.
there are experts to follow up.
I'll be listening from the sideline.
Okay. Just briefly, this is an opportunity for us to once again secure funding to make security enhancements in the schools. Based on previous work and earlier rounds, Will and Deanne have worked with the district staff to develop a proposal for 7 schools to purchase various surveillance cameras and door access improvements. Because this is a reimbursement grant, funds will flow from the city first, for the district first, and then will be reimbursed by the state at our standard reimbursement rate of 79.79%. There is a local match requirement. And in this case, as you could see in the cover letter I provided, the dollar amount of the local match would be $223,422.42 based on the budget as it stands, as estimated today by Will Zuda. So with that number, I approached Doreen Biolo, and Doreen was able to confirm as CFO that the district could provide that local match if we were fortunate enough to be awarded the grant. And I'm sure Dan or Will would like to add some information. Gentlemen?
No, Louise, you did a great job explaining it. Like I said, this is an estimate. We had some recent bids on some security items that we went out to bid for. So we came up with an estimate based on the number of cameras that we put in schools of similar size, and based on the pricing that came out in the last 14 schools that we went out to bid for. Like I said, this number might change, but this is our best estimate with the short time frame. We really don't have the time to do a thorough walkthrough and identify all the areas of needs.
Any questions that we could help with?
I think no one's waving their hands, so I think you guys are complete there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is, well, let's see, there's 4 of them in a row with Mr. Harmon. Agenda item 8, request approval of a professional services agreement with Integrated Technical Systems, Inc. for a notifier fire alarm systems at various schools. Harmon Tours, are you still with us? Your mic is muted, big guy.
Is that better? Yeah.
That's better. The
I just
floor
had
is
to
yours.
put my phone. So yeah, anyways, with the fire alarms, basically we're going to be putting them in 10 schools. And that is from the Alliance Bond funding. I actually, let's see, it's Bucks Hill, Bunker Hill, Driggs, Generali, Tinker, and Washington. So that's basically those ones that we're going to be replacing.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris? No one's raising their hand, Chris, so you can go on to the next agenda item, number 9. Request approval of a contract with MJ Faye and Sons Incorporated for horizontal hung steam coil blower air handler replacement at Sprague School. That sounds like a fun project.
Yeah, we got 4 of them in the gym that we have to replace. It's pretty straightforward. They're just the units that are bolted to the ceiling of the gym, and then they're going to come in, take them out, and then change them.
Beautiful. Questions for Chris? Not all at once. Oh, Rocco's got a question, probably a purchasing question.
Question.
What's
So
up?
how are lead times on these stuff, Chris?
Well, that's what we were running into a lot of problems with. A lot of these lead times are double of what they normally would be, just due to the fact that the COVID and everything else. But we should be able to get them done. You know, there shouldn't be an issue with those. So we're obviously going to keep just moving forward.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chris? All right, Chris, next agenda item is request approval. It's item number 10. Request approval of contract with Atlantic Sport Wood Floors, Inc. for the replacement of gym floor systems in Kingsbury and Walsh schools.
Yes.
Floor is yours.
So basically, yeah, it's at Crosby and then Kennedy to replace the. I'm sorry, did you say bleachers?
No, I'm on creative no, wait, hold on. I'm at Atlantic Sport Wood Floors, number 10.
Oh, okay. So that would be at Kingsbury?
Kingsbury and Walsh.
In Walsh, yes. So basically we had, we got a company and they're going to end out doing it. We do have an issue. That's why we have to get back to them as soon as we can to make sure that they could order it and secure the product. I just talked to them today, actually. But yeah, they have lead times that are, 10 plus weeks just to try to get stuff. So that's where we are with that.
Okay. Any questions for Chris? Okay, Chris, we're going to move on to the next one. Is the request approval. This is item number 11. Request approval of a contract with Creative Recreation LLC for playground improvements at Kingsbury and Bucks Hill schools.
Yep, and they're slated to come in and we'll be able to get it done before the start of school. And they are taking out the old ones and, just basically returning and putting in the new ones. And it's pretty straightforward with those.
Sounds like it. Any questions for Chris? Chris, you've done a stellar job. You are all done. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Item number 12, request approval of the Amendment 1 to the Professional Services Agreement with EBS Healthcare for the Registered Behavioral Technician Services. Darren Schwartz.
Yes, thank you, President. We are looking to amend the contract right now. We put a cap of 20 RBTs, registered behavior technicians, in the contract. We want to remove that cap. As of right now, that does not mean we will exceed the dollar amount. If we do feel like we will exceed the dollar amount, we will obviously come back to request an amendment. But at this point, we would like to take off that cap of 20. We are right at that cap right now in the contract, and our needs are growing, and so therefore we want to be proactive and remove it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Darren on this? Darren, again, you've done a stellar job. Nobody's raised their hand, so thank you very much. Item number 13 is a request of approval of the CSDE supplemental grant application for adult education cooperating eligible entity / literacy volunteers of Greater Waterbury. Attorney Tara Shaw, do I see your name attached to this?
To President Pagano, thank you, and good evening, Vice President Harvey, Commissioners, and Dr. Ruffin, all on the call. I'm presenting this grant application on behalf of Literacy Volunteers of Greater Waterbury, which is a cooperative entity with our Waterbury Adult Education Program. In essence, the grant will fund free tutoring for prospective adult ed students who score below a certain threshold on the placement test. Sorry, I have a dog barking, I apologize. It essentially provides up to 40 hours of tutoring before a retest, and then additional tutoring if those students fall below a certain score again, but it works collaboratively with our adult education literacy program. Are there any questions that I could answer?
Any questions for Tara? Nobody's raising their hand, so you did a stellar job also. Thank you very much. Item 14 is request approval of a service agreement with Durham School Services for the student bus transportation services. Ms. Doreen Biolo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pagano, Vice President Harvey, Commissioners, Dr. Ruffin, and good evening, everybody. Before you is the service agreement with Durham School Services for our regular education student bus transportation service. This was a request for proposal. Durham was our only bidder on that. We had a selection committee that consisted of Judge Clark, Transportation Director Jeff Hunter, myself, and Rosh Magfor from the School Business Office. We voted unanimously to contract with Durham. They have provided services over the past 15 years, and we found them to always be satisfactory. This is a 5-year contract, which will run from July 1 of 2021 to June 30th of 2026. This will be for 125 buses for daily transportation for morning and afternoon bus routes. Also for summer school. They will also supply transportation for early or split dismissals, after school programs, co-curricular activities, extra activities, round trip transportation for students also enrolled in our Southington VOAG program. It is a total of $46,605,835.99. It was approximately over the 5 years, an average increase of around a little over 16%. The buses and vehicles will be of 2016 model year or newer equipment. So probably in the second or third year, buses will be replaced with newer buses. So if anybody has any questions.
Commissioner Charles Stango, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Doreen. At one time back with the previous contract, did this come through a particular board committee? Do we have a committee for school buses or school transportation at that time? No.
Have had a transportation committee in the past, but that was intermingled with the finance committee.
Oh, okay. And so I guess my other question is going to be, are these the same buses we're using now will be carried through for 2 or 3 more years? They're diesel buses, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, but these buses are fueled by propane.
That's right, propane.
Yeah.
That now, right.
Yeah, our diesel is with our special education.
Right. I remember that. I remember that from the transportation committee that we had.
Right.
Okay, all things move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Commissioner Melissa Serrano Adorno, and then Commissioner Liz Brown.
Thank you, President Pagano. Doreen, are these buses going to continue to have the transportation app where the parents can follow and see when the buses are on their way to pick up their child at their bus stops?
Yes, that will still be continued.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Liz Brown.
And just a quick question. Remind me, what is this, just a straight budget item, or are we using grant funds or ESSER funds or anything for this, or is this just a straight budget
This
item?
is straight general fund budget items. If there's anything extra that needs, that a grant program may want to use, then they would use the rates in this contract, which would be paid from the grant. But what I'm showing before you is strictly our general fund budget, transportation costs.
Because I notice our very aggressive summer school program that we're going to be using ESSER money. Now, is the ESSER money paying for those funds for the summer school program, the expansion of the summer school program?
Correct. Usually
Okay.
any program that is funded through grants, the busing, it comes from that grant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Commissioner Tom Van Stone, I see your hand waving. You're muted, big guy.
Yep, there I am. Doreen, I was doing some quick math, and it looks like in the proposed budget, we're pretty much right on the money with what you put in the proposal, about 16 million. I'm bridging these two items together. The 16 million in the budget looks to be right there. Did I do my math correctly? At
You did,
16
and we
million
would
for
also,
total
yeah,
contract?
we're also going to be including, there is another service that we have with Ambassador for our medically fragile students. But that contract was not up for renewal yet. It's still in its, I think, second or third year next year.
Okay.
So that's around
one for one on the proposed
600,000.
budget.
So between those three, you're coming up to that
Yeah.
16 million.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
President.
Commissioner Van Stone. Any other questions for Doreen Viola? I don't see any hands waving. Doreen, you can go on to the next item, which should be similar. It's a request approval of a service agreement with All Star Transportation LLC for special education bus transportation services.
Yep, so this is, again, for special education transportation. Same committee, selection committee consisted of looking over the proposals. There were two proposals. We picked All Star unanimously. We've had service with them for over 15 years. And again, very, very satisfactory service. It is a 5-year contract. Same thing, it'll run from July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2026. It'll probably run approximately 70 buses during the regular school year and also for summer school. It also supplies school buses for our early and split dismissals, our after-school program, and our early childhood education program, and our out-of-district services. Again, the bus models will be from 2016 and or newer, and they will run on diesel fuel. It's a total amount of $40,747,600. And that's basically it on that. So any questions?
Any questions, anyone? Doreen, did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is, don't go anywhere, Doreen, is your Committee on Finance, your March monthly expenditure report. The floor is yours, Ms. Viola.
Thank you again. So this is through March. And as I mentioned through the Finance Committee the other night, we did a transfer. So the biggest thing I want to point out is the funding that we're saving through COVID, and we're right now transferring that into the sinking fund to be used later on for any type of capital purchases as needed, technology purchases as needed. So we're not going to be using any of the contingency, which is offsetting our budget for fiscal year 22. So basically that's about it. It's a lot of savings due to COVID in areas of salaries, subs, busing, and we've transferred some money in around, and we've been able to also do purchases. If you notice, I did not add any increase to the budget for the international school for supplies because we're using some of this surplus to cover those costs. I've been working with Dee Tomasello and Darren Schwartz on that. So,
Thank you, Doreen. Anybody have a comment or a question for Doreen? All right. No one's waving their hand. Doreen, you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is number 17, a request for the approval of the suspension of policy 5113, attendance requirements for course credit or promotion for the 2020/2021 school year. This has got Mr. Darren Schwartz's name on it.
Good evening, board again. Just want to, I think my streak is over on this, but we will see. So tonight we are coming to you in request for approval of the suspension of policy 5113 and 5123 and 18. They kind of come as it's kind of hard to talk about one without the other. So if it's okay with the president and the board, may I address both?
You shall be able to do so.
Thank you for granting that, sir. So with this, right now in the board policy, and I'm having trouble with my computer here, but in the board policy 5123, hopefully you can see my screen. It currently sits there, and basically what we're looking to do is to suspend the policy because it has dates in there, such as May 15th of the school year where a waiver will be granted. We anticipate fully that many of our students are going to need that opportunity through summer learning experiences to be able to earn their credit or be able to pass on to the next grade. We also have a whole basically month of school after May to still include learning for students to be able to give them that opportunity to catch up, be able to make up the work that they may have missed due to various reasons. And so right now the policy does exist and it does sit there in the board as an opportunity for us to utilize. And so in the discussion at the policy committee, there was some discussion about making sure that we're not giving too much away and for students. And I would agree with the board that in the discussions with the superintendent and specifically with the principals, we're not looking to completely alter this policy so it's unrecognizable. But if you do take a side-by-side look, and I wanted to pop this policy up first for you so that you could see that it does exist. And if we were going to implement it, we would be making decisions about waivers for students by May 15th, which we don't think is necessarily the right idea, but we tried to stay as true to the policy as possible if we do move forward with a suspension so that it would look similar, but the timelines would change. And so we would still be looking for teachers possibly to submit waivers for students no later than June 1st. And this would be based on criteria as discussed with the principals, based on a student that we know is mastering the standards, that may have had mitigating circumstances this year due to COVID, but may not have the exact grades to say that they technically passed and or should move on to the first, second, or third grade. They may not have the grades, but the teacher believes they have the ability to be able to be successful the next grade. Again, this currently exists in the policy we have. It just has a different date. The building principal will review these requests, take into the considerations, which the only thing in addition into our procedure that we would put in place is adding letter F, which is mitigating circumstances, taking that into account. Building principal would review that above criteria, and if they agree with the teacher request of the waiver, they would put that recommendation up towards the superintendent's designee for final approval. We also wanted to make sure that the building administration may refer a student to academic support in the summer and submit waivers to the superintendent's designee, because we do anticipate a lot of opportunity this summer for students to either earn credit or to make up the work for students in elementary school specifically to attend summer school for those weeks in July and that 1 week in August, to be able to make up the work and to be able to pass on to the next grade level. All those decisions should be sent up by August 13th, and we would have a quick turnaround to approve those decisions by August 20th so that we can place students and make sure they are in the proper grades for the upcoming year before the start of the school year. And then any student who is awarded, and this is not in the policy, we just added this in because the question became, if a student does get an academic waiver, say they for some reason they're approved of the waiver, and we're like, what grade did they get? And so we settled on, can't really give them a grade higher than an F because they haven't earned that grade. And so the pass would be on the transcript. And obviously, unfortunately, colleges and other institutions looking at that will see the pass, but they will not have earned anything higher than F, because students that earned grades higher than F wouldn't be fair necessarily to them. And so this would be what would be looking for in terms of the waiver academics, slightly changing suspending the policy, and then slightly changing the procedure to allow for different timelines for this year, especially with a more robust summer opportunity for students. And then very similar waiver attendance, which I believe is item number 17 on your agenda. We do have a board policy 5113. If you look at D in that policy, it speaks specifically to if a student has excess of 20 absences. Usually what would happen is that would require a parent or family member or guardian to appeal the student being held back based on the 20 absences, and not that appeal. And there's a limit to those appeals on policy 5113. It spells out quite clearly for students that they can only appeal, be granted twice in grades K to 5, once in grades 6 to 8, and once in grades 9 to 12. And so a suspension of this policy would allow the district and for teachers and administrators to work together to submit an attendance appeal for students who may have more than 20 absences and may already be passing and quite frankly have A's, B's, C's, or D's, but may have more than 20 absences this year. And so instead of counting on the families and getting the families to do the appeal process on behalf of the student, counting on those closest to the student in terms of their ability to master the standards and get the grade level content to be able to put the appeal in for the student to allow them to pass on if they have the academic grades to do so. In this appeal, and this waiver would not account as one of the appeals in the policy that you currently have. And again, both policies would be in effect for the current school year and into the summer. If you're interested in more of the process and then just more of a summary page, this is probably a great place to start. Basically, the way we would do this is utilize our Google Sheets and for each school to be able to put students' names on there that they're requesting waivers for. I think the assistant superintendents, from the conversations I've had with them, they're already talking to principals already about who they think they're holding back, how many students they're holding back, how many students are most likely going to summer school, how many students do you really think are going to get the waiver. It's not as much as I think we feared, at least at the policy meeting, from what we're hearing. We think a lot of students are going to be able to get into work by the end of the year, and or take advantage of the summer experience to be able to pass on. Either way, all of these decisions will be made by August 20th, regardless if it's an attendance or academic waiver.
Thank you, Darren.
Yep, and I'd open up for questions.
Yep, questions, everyone? I gotta manipulate the screen here because I don't see everybody smiling. I don't see anybody waving hands. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody got a question for Darren? All right, I do have one quick question in 5123. All you're doing is modifying the target dates. You're not changing the essence of the policy, correct?
I don't think we're necessarily changing the essence. We have changed some language. So again, in number 3, we added mitigating circumstances to consider when requesting the waiver. But I do want, it's a good point, President Pagano. So I want to be clear. I believe 5123 is specifically talking about from retention.
Right.
The tricky thing about retention, though, is when you get to the high schools, you're retained if you don't earn enough credit. And so if you don't earn, as I think the board probably, most of you remember, we've passed, we passed in the grading policy that you have to earn certain amounts of credits to move on to the next grade. So we don't have someone that thinks they're a senior but only has 3 credits. That didn't make sense. And so we put that and made sure that was in there. And so I want to be clear that so it could get confusing. We don't want principals to be able to say, well, let's say this freshman, he only has 3 credits right now. He needs 3 to become a sophomore. We're just going to put in an academic waiver to give that student 3 credits. That's not what's happening. So the student would have to get credit by the course that they took and based on the teacher's expectations of passing that course. And so I just want to be clear, because that could be a question of, well, how do you retain a high school student? We're not looking to just give broad 3 credits to get them onto the next grade. It would be at the high school level. It would be looking at their coursework in a specific working with that teacher based on, do they earn that waiver, and if not, do they, because again, they would have to go to summer school for that specific course anyways if they had to go on it. So I just wanted to make sure that that we're not just going to broadly give out 3 or 4 credits at the high school level.
You answered my question. Thank you. Anybody else got a question or a comment? Mr. Schwartz, we thank you. Nicely done. Next agenda item, I don't know who it goes to, is use of school facilities by school organization and or city departments. Is there a new heir apparent since Mr. Clark has left us?
Yeah, I'll take that, Mr. Pagano.
Oh, Mr. Zuda, nice to hear your voice.
Thanks. Good evening, President Pagano, Vice President Harvey, Commissioners, Dr. Ruffin. With the approval of the Committee on School Facilities and Grounds, the Superintendent of Schools recommends approval of the use of facilities at no charge by the following city departments. Parks and Recs for Victor Cuevas, that's Crosby, Wallace, Wilby, and North End, from June 17th to 8-9. The auditorium and the gym pool, and the Kennedy pool for the Learn to Swim program. And Lee Richard from the Health Department on CNA testing for WCA and Kennedy High School on June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
Any questions for Mr. Zuda? Commissioner Liz Brown, I see your hand.
President. Well, if the park department and the school system working together on a summer school program, I remember last summer, the park department, because of COVID, they used our schools for their park department. I believe it was only the park department. So with us having such a robust summer school, is there a conflict, or are we working with the park department?
We're currently working together.
Okay.
It will be a master scheduler that's going to help put all those schedules together to make sure that there's no overlap and that the facilities are used properly.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got a question for Will? Commissioner Karen Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will, I hate to ask you this question, but, and if you don't have the answer to it, that's okay, if you have to look, but it's just the same question. It's just kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Brown asked, is that we have different local organizations that have applied for the use of our schools, and they have not received notification as to whether or not those have been okay. They have presented their COVID, plans, etc. And the rec department and PAP seem to get the request, and the others are not. So are there any plans to look at that and because we're coming into the summer, and are we going to do that, or if not, when is that going to happen?
I did do some research for you, Vice President Harvey, and currently there are no applications being approved during the school year. I know on May 19th, I talked to Adam Rinko. On May 19th, the governor's coming out with new guidelines that we're waiting on to find out. But currently there are no applications. These are the ones that we just currently read off to you. Those are for in the summer, so not during the school year. There's about 13 applications that have been pending. There's about 5 new applications that we haven't been able to review yet until we get the new guidelines from the governor, and then we will be able to make a better determination on the use of these facilities.
Great, great. So that's what, May 19th
Yes, I believe so.
from the governor? Okay,
Yep.
okay. That's a plan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Anybody got another question for Will? No one's got their hand up. Will, do you have the next agenda item also, number 20?
Yeah, there are none, so there are no
Okay.
items.
You've excelled at what you were supposed to do then. Good for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Suda. Our next agenda item is for your own reading pleasure, the superintendent's notification to the board, 5 minutes for Dr. Ruffin. Do you have anything to point out?
I do not.
Okie dokie, thank you. That means we are at the stage of adjournment, but we are actually 15 minutes early, thanks to everyone for being efficient. We have an executive committee, what do we call this? Executive session?
Executive session, yes.
On the next special meeting that we can theoretically do over the next 15 minutes, if that's enough time, and I got to go to the little batter's cage for 5 seconds, but I'll be right back. Is everyone in agreement with that plan?
We need a motion to add it to the agenda first, please.
May we have a motion to add it to the agenda, please?
So moved.
May I have a
Motion to-
second?
Second.
May I have a show of hands if you're in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Not in
Now we need a
agreement, say
motion to go
no.
into it.
Pardon?
We need a motion to go into executive session. I believe Commissioner Sweeney has the verbiage.
Motion to convene into executive session for discussion concerning the appointment, employment, performance, evaluation, health, or dismissal of a public officer or employee related to sabbatical leave request and non-renewal request.
Any discussion? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We're going into executive session.
Okay.
Doctor, it'll be yourself, Commissioners, Attorney Shaw, and Mr. Mendoza?
That is correct.
Okay, everybody
All right,
else is off, Will.
Good evening, everyone, to this Waterbury Board of Education special meeting for
Chuck.
Thursday, May.
Chuck, we have to return from executive session.
Oh,
Yes.
okie dokie. What do I got to do?
Motion to return from executive session to the regular order of business. No votes were taken.
Second.
Discussion? Everyone in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I didn't hear you, Ann.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, well, I heard somebody say something. The ayes have it, motion carries. We are out of executive session.
Right.
And it's my honor.
We have to adjourn the workshop.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion?
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed,
Aye.
abstained, everybody, motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you. Now can I greet everybody and welcome them to the
Yes,
special
you may.
session? Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Waterbury Board of Education special meeting for Thursday, May 6, 2021. If we may start off with a silent prayer for tonight. Commissioner Elizabeth Brown, would you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, please?
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Carrie, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Vice President Harvey,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Here.
Commissioner Nardozzi.
Here.
Commissioner Orso,
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Serrano Adorno,
Here.
Commissioner Stango,
Here.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Here.
Commissioner Van Stone,
Present.
President Pagano.
Present. Our first agenda item is item number 4. Vice President Harvey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 4.1, ladies and gentlemen, with the approval of the Committee of the Whole, the Superintendent of Schools recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve the new Waterbury Public Schools District logo. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you. Any discussion? Is there a
Second.
second, please? Thank you. Any discussion, comments? Okie dokie. Oh, Commissioner Brown.
No, I just want to say it's beautiful and thank you for all the hard work. And I think it's really says a lot about our district.
Nicely said. Any other comments?
Thank you. The whole team worked on it. I'm really pleased that it had so much involvement, including students involved in it. Thank you, and thanks to Jaffa, Will, and the team.
Great job, everyone. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone. My fellow Red Sox fan, Commissioner Rocco Orso, item number 5. The floor is yours.
Okay. Committee on Finance, 5.1, request approval of a memorandum of agreement with the University of Connecticut NEAG School of Education.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Comments? Hearing none, please signify your agreement by saying aye.
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 If you're opposed, please let us know by saying no. The ayes have it, motion carries. Commissioner Orso.
Item 5.2, request approval of a professional services agreement with Integrated Technical Systems Incorporated for notifier fire alarm systems at various schools.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion, comments? If you're in agreement with this, would you please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
If you oppose, please say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much. Commissioner Orso.
Item 5.3, request approval of contract with MJ Faye and Sons Incorporated for horizontal hung steam coil blower air handler replacement at Sprague School.
Second.
It's actually a mouthful there, Mr. Orso.
I know.
I had trouble even reading it. But any discussion or comment? If you're in agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no, please. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Commissioner Orso.
Item 5.4, request approval of contract with Atlantic Sport Wood Floors Incorporated for replacement of gym floor systems at Kingsbury and Walsh schools.
Second.
Thank you. If you're in agreement with this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say no, please. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Commissioner Orso, one more time.
Item 5.5, request approval of contract with Creative Recreation LLC for playground improvements at Kingsbury and Bucks Hill School.
Second.
Thank you. If you're in agreement with this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Orso.
Yes, Mr.
Commissioner Ann
President.
Sweeney, you have item number 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve the suspension of Board Policy 5113, attendance requirements for course credit or promotion for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Second.
Thank you very much for the second. Any discussion or comments? If you're in agreement with this, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, please say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sweeney.
Item 6.2. Ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve the suspension of Board Policy 5123, waiver policy for student retention for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Thank you very much for the second. Any discussion or comment? If you're in agreement with this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Please signify by saying no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
You sure everybody wants to get out of here?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then please signify by saying aye at your loudest voice.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
If you're
Happy
holding it
Mother's
down,
Day, everybody.
Happy Mother's
Happy
Day.
Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
We are
Mother's
officially
Day.
Happy
adjourned.
Mother's Day.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Happy Mother's Day.